The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony usually happens in April of every year. This year, things are different, but they just aired the telecast for the whole ceremony, and we're going to talk about it right now. Hey everybody, Chris King here with Love Live Music. I just finished watching the 2-ish hour Rock and Roll Hall of Fame presentation that broadcast on HBO and HBO Max. Have you seen it? Have you ever been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I have to say, after watching the show, yeah, I might have to go check it out. I think about it every once in a while, but I see something like this and I'm like, maybe I should make the trip up to Cleveland. It's interesting because for years, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to me just kind of seemed like this mainstream thing that I wasn't interested in. HBO would broadcast it every year. I'd keep my eye on the nominees. A lot of time I'd be like, what are they doing in there? You know, side-eyeing it. I was side-eyeing the Hall of Fame. But, everybody comes around and at some point you realize that even the stuff that you thought was super mainstream, you do have an appreciation for it. I found myself thinking that several times during this broadcast. So, who got in this year and what was it all about? Well, let me tell you. It all started off with the Doobie Brothers. And one great thing about this telecast is every artist, they had a lot of old footage that you probably haven't seen before. Not necessarily all performance footage, a lot of the artist in the studio, maybe some classic interviews, things like that. That's all cut and edited. All in all, the broadcast was pretty excellent. So the Doobie Brothers start off, and certainly just watching that, I feel like, hey, I've seen the Doobie Brothers several times in concert, and now I've got an even bigger appreciation of them, even though the only Doobie Brothers album I think I've ever owned is Greatest Hits. From there, they go into 9 Inch Nails. They kind of catch a lot of Trent's backstory, his history in industrial music, even though he didn't necessarily think of it as industrial. I thought it was interesting that Iggy Pop is who put them in, did most of the presentation for 9 Inch Nails of putting them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Iggy is always interesting to listen to. He's got points that you don't really think of. So I enjoyed listening to Iggy Pop talk about 9 Inch Nails. One thing I thought was interesting was somebody pointed out that Head Like a Hole, 9 Inch Nails, actually has 2 choruses. Most songs only have one, but it literally has 2 choruses with Bow Down Before the One You Serve and then Head Like a Hole. So that was an interesting point that was brought up that I hadn't considered before. From there, we go into Biggie Smalls, I believe, or maybe there was an Ahmet Ertegun Award given to somebody. I can't remember. It was, Irving Azoff. I couldn't think of Irving Azoff, but Irving Azoff, of course, instrumental in the career of the Eagles, several other artists. Irving Azoff was inducted as well. But we go to Biggie Smalls. And when I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I've got to pull out the wiki page and read up because I'm thinking, man, did Biggie have that much material that even came out? And yeah, he had the one album, Ready to Die, that was huge, maybe huge later. It sold 6 million copies, but a lot of that happened after the fact. And then his second album came out a couple of weeks after he died. So I thought it was interesting that that Biggie Smalls is in there with only really 2 albums of work. A couple of posthumous releases have come out, things that they culled together from some studio sessions. But I thought that was interesting. Nirvana, I was thinking, okay, well, who else is in the Hall of Fame that didn't have a really large body of work? And Nirvana came to mind, but, they had 3 albums that were all pretty big deals. Maybe Bleach wasn't when it came out, but after the fact, certainly it was. So anyway, it was interesting to see, some of the backstory on Biggie. Of course, they had Puff Daddy there to talk about him, their relationship, things like that. After Notorious B.I.G, we go to Depeche Mode, I think. Depeche Mode, and I really enjoyed watching the Depeche Mode portion of it. Lots of great footage of them. Makes me want to go back and watch the Live at the Rose Bowl concert from the early 80s. When that happened, that was super huge because nobody had sold out the Rose Bowl like that, and a new wave band, as they said. It was fantastic. One of the interesting things about the Depeche Mode induction was they had Billy Gibbons talking about them. You know, it's like, I didn't realize that Billy Gibbons was that big of a Depeche fan. I guess he does wear black most of the time, so that should have been the clue that the sharp-dressed man is a fan of the personal Jesus. Moving on from there, we go to another Alma Erdogan classic inductee, and that would be John Landau, who I really, I was thinking, what has he done except rock criticism? Which, hey, if rock criticism gets you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, sign me up in 30 years. But for real, he was a big part of producing producing Bruce Springsteen's career, as well as working with Jackson Browne, Natalie Merchant, and my friend Alejandro Escovedo, which I didn't even realize that they worked together. Now I know. Now I've got something to ask Alejandro about next time, instead of always wanting to talk about Sid Vicious. From there, we go to T-Rex. Mark Bolan and T-Rex getting inducted. This is one that probably people have waited a long time for. Much like, Depeche. How is Depeche Mode not already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Like 10 years ago should have been in it, right? I don't know who votes on this stuff. Not me. They don't send me the vote. If they did, I would be like Prince, The Time, Sheila E. That's my jam. From Mark Bolan and T-Rex. Mark Bolan puts glitter on his face and David Bowie says, he did it first. I love that line from Bowie. And then we go into, and I knew it was going to be the last one, the showstopper herself, Whitney Houston. And I don't care how hard you think you are, some of those Whitney Houston songs are just freaking amazing. And you listen to them after not hearing them for years or decades even. And she just had it, man. She could belt it out. She had it. And it was exciting. It was exciting to see Clive Davis mention that he first saw Whitney Houston at Sweetwater Club, which I'm guessing is San Francisco. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that, he saw her and wanted to sign her right away. And that's just power to club performances, club gigs. That's where it starts for so many people. And it was just, it was great. It was great to see some old footage of Whitney, gone too soon. Also, why is she just now getting in? She died in 2012. I think the rule is 25 years from your first recording. So we've got to be, 8, maybe 10 years removed from her eligibility. So I don't know. I don't make the rules. But I will say the entire 2 hours was totally worth the watch. I'm glad I saw it. There's so much. If you're a music fan, not just a live music fan, but if you love music, if you love popular rock and soul and pop, it was excellent. My only criticism would be the in memoriam section. So many people have died, and I get it. The last Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was actually April of 2019. So we're talking about a year and a half worth of stuff that they've got to cover. But the in memoriam section ran so fast that you could barely see the picture and read who it was, or if there were more than one person on the screen at a time, good luck, because you couldn't see it all. It just moved real fast. So that's why we have pause buttons. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's on HBO Max, and I think you will really enjoy watching that video. And if you like to watch videos about music, man, you're in the right place. You can stick around because I've got more videos about music about to roll right now. You're going to love it. I promise. Hit that subscribe button.